Impressionism, which started in 1870s till 1890s, which can be considered as first of the modern art movements, had its immediate root in the tradition of realism. Realistic painters such as Cobbett, Millet, Corret were capturing scenes from the natures and people going about their everyday lives, particularly in the countrysides. The Impressionists also developed an interest in the contemporary subject matters, but of an informal and pleasurable kind, especially a part of the social life of Paris and its surroundings. Impressionism coalesced in 1860s when a group of painters pursued plein air painting together. The movement made its official debut in 1874 as a show hosted by the Paris Photography Studio of Felix Neder. This show was an alternative to the Académie des Beaux Arts Salon de Paris, which had been the official exhibition and oversee of art standards since 1667. Comprised of the works submitted to the Salon, they were rejected by the Academy. The group called itself the Cooperative and Anonymous Association of Painters, Sculptors, and Engravers, featured 30 artists showing works. The Impressionists took their name from the insult hurled by the press at one of the Monet's paintings, Impression and Sunrise. Critic heaped scorn on the work presented in the show as unfinished and compared it as unfavorably to wallpapers. Moving ahead with the monist, who was the leader of the movement, and his belief brush strokes and fragmented colors application found their way into the work of others. He was particularly interested in the passage of time in his Portal of Lights. His series of paintings capturing Roman cathedral at different times of year and days offer clear example of monist idea on how a subject can be transformed into properties around it.
Jean-Frédéric Bazille was a French Impressionist painter born on December 6, 1841 in Montpellier, France. His major works are examples of figure painting, in which he placed the subject figure within a landscape painting. Bazille began studying medicine in 1859 and moved to Paris in 1862 to continue his studies. There he met Pierre Auguste Renoir and Alfred Sisley. After failing his medical exam in 1864, he began painting full time. Bazile was just 23 years old when he painted several of his best known works. He died in the battlefield of Franco-Prussian War at the age of 28 years. His career was only of about 7 years, in which he made 60 paintings.
Portraits of the Family is an 1867 painting by the French painter Frédéric Bézier. It is now in the collection of the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. It depicts his close family with himself at the far left behind his seated parents, gathered on the terrace of the family home in France. In contrast with Claude Monet's work picture Woman in the Garden, which Bézier had recently bought from the artist, in which the subjects are captured in their own activity, Bezier's subjects are all motionless, looking at the viewer, giving his work the stilted feeling of a wedding photograph. Nevertheless, the painting was accepted for exhibition by the Salon in 1868 in preference to Monet's more daring compositions.
On February 25, 1841, in Limoges, France, Renoir was inspired by the style and subject matter of previous modern painters Camille Pissarro and Edward Manet. After a series of rejections by the Salon juries, he joined forces with Manet, Sisley, Pissarro, and several other artists to mount the first Impressionist exhibition in April 1874, in which Renoir displayed 6 paintings. He contributed a more diverse range of paintings the next year when the group presented its third exhibition. Renoir's paintings are notable for their vibrant light and saturated color, most often focusing on people in intimate and candid compositions. Yet in characteristic Impressionist style, Renoir suggested the details of a scene through freely brushed touches of color so that his figure softly fused with one another and their surroundings.
Paul Cézanne was a French painter, one of the greatest of the post Impressionists, whose works and ideas were influential in the aesthetic development of many 20th century artists and art movements, especially Cubism. Cézanne's art was misunderstood and discredited by the public during most of his life. grew out of his Impressionism and eventually challenged all the conventional values of painting in the 19th century. Because of his insistence on personal expression and on the integrity of the painting itself, regardless of the subject matter.
Still Life with Quince, Apples, and Pears. The still life of fruit is by post-impressionist Paul Cézanne and was painted around 1855 to 1887. The simple still life is of quince, apple, pears, and a small white dish on tabletop. The subjects, all males, are displayed as studios within their card playing, eye cast downward, intent to the game by hand. Cézanne adapts a motif of 17th century Dutch and French game painting, which often depicts card games with rowdy, drunken gamblers and cravens, replacing them instead with stone-faced tradesmen in more simplified setting.
Edgar Degas was a French painter, sculptor, and a printmaker who was prominent in the Impressionist group and widely celebrated for his images of Parisian life. Degas' principal subject was the human, especially the female figure, which he explored in works ranging from the sombre portraits of his early years to the studies of laundresses, cabaret singers, and milliners of his Impressionist period. Ballet dancers and women at their toilette would preoccupy him throughout his career. Degas was the only Impressionist to truly bridge the gap between traditional academic art and the radical movements of the early 20th century. A restless innovator who often set the pace for his younger colleagues. Acknowledged as one of the finest draftsmen of his age, Degas experimented with a wide variety of media, including oil, pastel, gouache, etching, lithography, monotype, wax modeling, and photography.
The Bilili family, also known as the family portrait, is an oil painting on canvas by Edgar Degas. A masterpiece of Edgar's youth, the painting is a portrait of his aunt, a husband, and their two young daughters. While finishing his artistic training in Italy, Degas drew and painted his aunt Laura, her husband, the Baron Gennaro Bilili, and their daughter Genova and Giulia. Although it is not known for certain when and where Degas executed the painting, it is believed that he utilized his studies done in Italy to complete the work after his return to Paris. Laura, his father's sister, is depicted in dress which symbolizes mourning for her father who had recently died and appears in framed portrait behind her.
Paintings by Pierre Auguste Renoir, commonly known as Dance at Les Moulins de la Galette, is an 1876 painting by French artist Pierre Auguste Renoir. It is housed at Musée d'Orsay in Paris and is one of Impressionism's most celebrated masterpieces. The painting depicts a typical Sunday afternoon at the original Galette in the district of Montmartre in Paris. In the late 19th century, working class Parisians would dress up and spend their time dancing, drinking, and eating galettes into the evening. Like other works of Renoir's early maturity, Dance at Galette is typically an impressionist snapshot of real life. It shows a richness of form, a fluidity of brushstrokes, and a flickering sun-dappled light. From 1879 to 1894, the painting was in the collection of the French painter Gustave Caillebotte, and when he died, it became the property of the French Republic as payment for death duties. From 1896 to 1929, the painting hung in the Musée de Luxembourg in Paris, and from 1929 it hung in the Louvre until it was transferred to the Musée d'Orsay in 1986. The second painting is Luncheon at the Boating Party. This painting by Renoir is included in the 17th Impressionist exhibition of 1882, where it was identified as the best painting in the show by three critics. The painting, combining figures, still lifes, and landscape in work, depicts a group of Renoir's friends relaxing on a balcony at Maison Fournaise restaurant along the Seine in Chateau, France. The painting and art patron Gustave Caillebotte is also present in the painting. The diagonal of the railing serves to demarcate the two halves of the composition, one densely packed with figures, the other all but empty save for the two figures which are made prominent by this contrast. In this painting, Renoir has captured a great deal of light. The main focus of the light is coming from the large opening in the balcony, besides the large silhouette man in the hat. The silhouettes of both men in the foreground and the tablecloth all work together to reflect this light and send it through the whole composition.
Impressionism may not have been the most radical or revolutionary art movement in history, but it was one of the most important. Impressionism is responsible for all of the modern art movements that we are familiar with today. Impressionism broke the rules so that more radical forms of art may one day be accepted, and Impressionism has become the most popular art movement in history. Today, Monet and Renoirs sell for many millions of dollars or euros or whatever currency you may be familiar with. Impressionist paintings are coveted due to their beauty and their impact on contemporary culture. Because if it wasn't for Impressionism, you wouldn't be able to go to cities such as Seattle and sit in a park staring at weird abstract statues. So, admire the history that Impressionism has helped to create and sit in awe as you stare at the magnificent paintings its artist produced. For only when we know about the art can we truly appreciate it.